We've all done it, eaten far too much at tea time. The feeling of, I couldn't eat another thing. Not even a fly. But the sight of a full little belly is a positive sign of growth and future success. It's also a sign that this little chap needs a nap. But not right now. Come on, wake up. It's time for Springwatch.
Hello and welcome to Springwatch 2024 on a glorious evening at RSBB Arn here in Dorset. Just look at it, the heath sweeping down to the banks of Poole Harbour.
Stunning.
The sun shining, the sky blue.
The light is really gorgeous tonight.
Outstanding,
Lovely.
Absolutely outstanding. We had quite a busy week here, lots of activity. Our barn owl nest has 4, well, not exactly attractive chicks, but they're doing very well. Our reed warblers are looking superb in that dainty little nest, bristling with hungry youngsters. Our robins fledged. One of them took a bold leap into the unknown, as did our Dartford warblers. 2 successful fledglings there. Our sand martins are still safely ensconced in their burrow. Things are looking good.
Things are looking good indeed. Megs, of course, is up in Scotland, but Yolo has joined us here on site today. He's doing the Walk of Shame, having gone to look for live badgers yesterday and seen...
Sorry, Yola couldn't make it. Yola couldn't make it. I'm filling in for him. I'm quite happy. Walk of shame is right. I'm sorry. I've let you down. I've let myself down. I've let the watches down. I throw myself at your feet.
Don't beat yourself up. We'll just send you back next year to see if we can see live badgers.
Thank you.
There is a sort of a knack to badger watching. Take a look at this, Yolo. I got this on my mobile phone a short while ago. You know?
That's what badgers look like. They're black and white. Oh, he's looking for brown things with big bushy tails up trees. Oh, and they eat peanuts.
Yes,
that was my mistake.
Yeah, that's magic ingredient.
That was my mistake. I didn't take enough peanuts with me. That's it. Next time, peanuts.
Either that or you have to go to Chris's back garden to go and see them, Yolo. Anyway, we're glad you're with us tonight. Let's catch up on our live nests. Let's take a look at them. Remember, it's Thursday. We're not on with you tomorrow, but you can continue to watch these live nests on iPlayer over the weekend. Oh, look at that lovely oyster catcher in the middle. We'll have a look at the oyster catcher later on. But I'm going to take you, first of all, to our blue tit. This is our live blue tit, and I'll tell you, I've got a big smile on my face right now because this blue tit is a real survivor. It is, in fact, the sole survivor. It's doing well, despite my colleague's slightly negative attitude towards it. Look at it, look at it. Tuesday, that's when things started to turn. It was getting better feeds. You can see the feathers start to develop, and it continues to grow. Whoa, look at all that flapping. This is a chick that's ready to fly. And as I say, it kept being fed, kept growing. This is today. We've actually named this little chick Sid. I know what you're going to say. Why Sid? Well, it's because in our truck where we have labels on all of the cameras, it says blue tick side angle. But unfortunately, the E is off the side, and so it says blue tit Sid angle. So we've named it Sid. I think it suits it. It's Sid, the sole survivor. So keep your eye on our little blue tit chick. It's been there for quite a long time, 17 days old, and hopefully it will fledge soon.
Hopefully it will fledge soon, yeah. Do you want to put your house... well, how much is your house worth? Do you want to...
do you know,
a little wager?
I'm
on that?
not going to bet. I'm just going to be full of hopefulness that that is going to fledge.
OK, let's go live to our oyster catcher. It hasn't been the most dynamic nest, but look at it. It's striking. Absolutely sensational. Pied bird, blue sky, on the shingle there, Poole Harbour behind it. Both the adults have been very dutiful in their incubation duties. They've got 3 eggs, regular changeovers throughout the course of the day. The eggs are never left unattended. Of course, the adult that isn't incubating goes off to feed, probing in that soft mud for invertebrates, worms, mollusks and so forth. We've seen danger at night. Fox came through very close to the nest on one night, came back again. And there you can see it slinking by. Not just once, but twice. Again, the fox came back. Adult moves away quietly into the night, and then the shadow of potential death looms, but then leans to one side. I don't know what's wrong with this fox's nose, or is it an extraordinary adaptation of the adults where they've reduced their smell and that of their eggs? Not the only mammals to interrupt play at the oyster catcher's nest. We've had sika deer down on the beach there. No real risk to the oyster catchers, maybe trampling, that would be highly unlucky. Now, we've been looking at those eggs for 22 days. We know they typically hatch between 24 and 27, so they are on the brink. We saw this evening, earlier on. Look very carefully. As this adult stands up, on the egg there you can see what appears to be a tiny white spot. It isn't a spot, it's a piece of missing shell. This egg is what we call pipping. The young bird inside is using its egg tooth on the tip of its bill to break out of that egg. Now, in species like oystercatcher, that's not a rapid process. That could take a day or so, actually, and there are 3 eggs in there. But it's clear that you should keep your eyes on this nest over the course of the weekend. Those cameras are available from 7 in the morning until 10 at night. You can find them on iPlayer, because I think by the end of the weekend, they will have gone.
Nice bird, Chris, nice bird, but not a nest, more of a scrape in the shingle, really. Let me take you over live to a proper nest. One we launched yesterday. This is a linnet nest, 4 big chicks in there. It's in the gorse on the heaths here at Arn. There we are, there's the gorse bank right in the middle. Typical linnet nest, really, but a metre and a half up there, tucked in out to the way. The 4 chicks are doing extremely well. They're in there, well, they fledge after 2 weeks from hatching. These will be gone maybe beginning of next week, middle of next week, but they're exercising already. You can see that they've still got the downy feathers on the head. The adults come in together. Female here feeding them, mainly seeds. I've been bringing in a few caterpillars as well, and the male comes in soon after. The reason for that is they want to minimise the amount of time they spend on the nest. And for that reason, of course, they want to minimise the danger. Look at it, collecting fecal sacs. 1, 2, 3 fecal sacs, and off she goes. Off she goes. That's not a very good chatter blind, that, is it? Someone comes out, all right, what do you do? Well, I collect fecal sacs, actually. You know, it's not going to get you very far, I don't reckon, that one.
I see that as a game. How many fecal sacs can you get in your mouth at once?
Well, 3.
Let's not try that one.
See if they beat 3.
I'm not playing, but I'd like to tell you a bit about the process of how we make our Springwatch programmes. We start off in the morning with a rough idea of what we want to include, and then throughout the course of the day, some things drop out and other things are added to it, normally more added to it. So we end up with a surfeit. Then we have a little run through, and we have to make some hard decisions about what we cut out of the programme. Now, sometimes I'm very aggrieved about some of those decisions. Just had our dress rehearsal and we were like 2 minutes over. We had to cut something out. We've got siskins, we've got chiff-chaff, we've got kestrels, we've got stingrays, if we can squeeze them in, and something to give. And do you know what they cut out? A fly on some squirrel poo. God, what am I going to do now? I feel like we've robbed the British public of something of extraordinary value. Anyway, they'll never know, I suppose, so it doesn't really matter. I have a short statement on behalf of Springwatch. We understand viewers' disappointment after the withdrawal of the footage of a fly feeding on grey squirrel excrement. Excluding this material to show cute baby birds, fluffy cubs, and the day-to-day dramas of pond life was a grave error, and we apologise unreservedly. We remain committed to flies and to excrement. Thank you. No questions at this time. No questions. Thank you. I was forced to take to social media, and thankfully the response was outstanding. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, indeed sometimes millions of people have replied on those platforms. So can I say thank you very much for that? And here is what you've been waiting for, the one and only fly on the squirrel poo. Now, we've asked experts, Dr. Erica McAllister, Terry Bagley, Dr. Tim Cockrell, what it is. They think it's Phoenia subventa. It's one of the Muscidae family. 90% of all of the flies are of that family, of 4,200 species. You may think flies are just there to be eaten by things which are more interesting, like our reed warblers. They form a significant part of their diet. But no, flies are important. They're there as decomposers. They're recycling or organic matter. I mean, flies are, are really important. I mean, that's a hell of a fly, people. That's a hell of a fly.
No, but hang on. I would like to put it out there and say, would you prefer to see Chris and his flies, Yolo and his badgers, or Megan and her beavers? Because that is what she's hoping to see live up in Scotland.
Well, I'm going to try and deliver live beavers tonight, and fingers crossed we can achieve that. Now, I'm still here at Argety Working Farm and Rewilding Estate, and I've made my way down to the heart of beaver territory, which is where I'm keeping my voice really low and scanning the water around me, hoping to get a sight of one. Now, beavers, as you know, are ecosystem engineers, known for building their main home, their lodge, and creating dams that create so many microhabitats for other species, lots of biodiversity to thrive. They're large rodents weighing about 30 kilograms, and in order to weigh that much and do what they do, they eat a lot of plants. They're entirely herbivorous, eating woody plants, shrubs, grasses, you name it. And very sadly, they were missing from the UK countryside for a long time. Dates are argued about, but we thought the last beaver in Scotland was about 400, 500 years ago. They went extinct. And of course, reintroduction programs all over the UK are happening and being incredibly successful, which is exactly what the story is here at Argety. But to see them live, we've got Steve Phillips with us again. Steve, have we got any beaver action?
There's not any at the moment, but they've been coming and going.
They have been. There's been quite a lot of beaver activity, actually, literally in the last 5-10 minutes. But just before we came live, this is what we saw. We saw a beaver poke its head out, and I thought, gosh, it looks like a log, until it moved its nose. And then, of course, it came out and showed us its glorious bottom, one of the best bottoms in the animal kingdom, if you ask me. Perhaps it's the waddle. I don't know what it is. But you can see how dense their fur is there, spending a lifetime in the water. Dense fur for thermoregulation. And, of course, diving under the water where their entrances are to their burrows, and where they go in and spend most of the time during the day asleep. But this is, we think, is the female coming out early in the evening. She's often out earlier than the others because obviously she might be feeding young kits, hopefully, and then she wants to go and get a little bit more food for herself earlier on. But to find out more about the Argety beavers, I'm joined by Tom Bowser. Hello, Tom.
Hi, mate.
Tell me a little bit about the history of these beavers here then, because they mean a lot to you.
Yeah, they mean the world to us. They are the second family that we have relocated to Argety, working in partnership with Beaver Trust and Five Sisters Zoo. So the first family came in November 21, and then this family came in February of 2022. And yeah, they're endlessly fascinating animals. We love them. They just mean the world to us.
Quite full of character. But I guess, like, that moment when that crate door opened and the first one made its way out here, that must have been an epic moment for you.
It was huge, yeah. It's a moment I'll never forget in my life. It was, we were the first people to relocate beavers from conflict sites, moving them from areas where lethal control licenses had been issued to hopefully lower conflict sites. And yeah, it'd been quite a full-on consultation process. We got a lot of support, but a lot of opposition as well. And when we finally got through it and opened the crates and let them out, well, I spent the whole day trying not to cry, to be honest.
Oh, bless you. I could imagine what a moment that was and what a fight it was here. Because, I mean, this is still a working farm, and have beavers on your land has actually, you think, benefited the area massively?
Oh, hugely. I mean, since the beavers have arrived, we've had drought summers, we've had rainy winters, and the beavers seem to have an answer for everything. They're not causing us any problems at all. And I think the same could be said for most places in Scotland. You know, so many places look like this and they're not going to cause an issue.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're saving us thousands of pounds in flood damage that we used to have, but we don't now, because the beavers are building their dams and digging canals and knocking down trees, and the water just has to work a lot harder to get through this landscape. In this pond here, we've probably got an extra 1 million litres of water, Stirling University scientists calculate, so
remarkable.
a huge thing.
Well, you can see just how much water it is able to hold, and especially in the grips of the climate crisis, where we know we're going to suffer from flooding, we're going to suffer from droughts. Actually, beavers, you know, they're not the overall solution for sure, but gosh, they help.
Definitely. I mean, right now we need all the help we can get. We can't say beavers are a silver bullet that can solve everything, but why would we not try and encourage them across Britain when we know what they can do when science shows it? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's about, I think, having tolerance, isn't it, of the animals that we've kind of forgotten how to live alongside. But we did historically, but obviously that was generations ago, decades ago. So actually to bring them back and to see, you know, you as a working farm working so wonderfully and harmoniously with them, it's just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. We hope that we can just provide a positive example and say that we're still producing food here, we're still living a totally same life as we did before. We've just got beavers on the place.
Yeah, which is really exciting, and potential kits may come out later on this year.
Yeah, it used to seem massive to me as a kid when we had the first Central Scotland hatched chicks that anyone knew of for over a century in the late 90s. That time frame used to seem enormous.
For red kites?
Yeah, sorry, for red kites. And then when the beavers came and we had the first beaver kits born here for 400, 500 years, just, yeah, enormous, you know. It just shows how massive their return is to Britain.
Can't imagine what that must be like.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. God, seriously, you're an absolute pioneer, and I respect you massively for all the reintroduction work that you do. Now, we know that reintroduction projects all across the UK are so critical, putting back those missing pieces of UK ecology puzzle. And there is one particular hero that is known globally, and we're going to go over back to RSPBR now to find out a little bit more about him.
And put you on the spot. Favourite reintroduction in the UK?
Beaver.
Beaver?
Yeah, beaver for me.
Biggest difference?
Yeah, biggest difference. Huge. I hope we see a lot more of it.
Seagull, osprey,
well,
red kite.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many.
Yeah, there are. There are indeed.
stuff.
Yeah. And we are now going to pay tribute to a person who's been involved in a lot of that. He is a true giant of conservation, a living legend, Roy Dennis. Our paths first met when I was a young green conservationist working for the RSPB in the 1980s and the early 1990s, and even then all of us looked up to him. He left and he's achieved so much. So much so that in 2004 the RSPB presented him with the Golden Eagle Award, which is the award that went to the person who's done most for conservation in Scotland over the past 100 years. Throw in an MB, an OB, and the fact that he's been active in conservation since 1959, and that gives you some measure of the man.
Everyone I know, everyone on the watches has enormous respect for Roy. So I rang him up and said, is there any chance I can pop round to have a mull over a few old birds? And when he said yes, I was on the Flying Scotsman before you could say Roy Dennis. Just 50 years ago, sights like this were unimaginable across swathes of the UK. Golden eagles, red kites, white-tailed eagles and osprey had been pushed to the brink of extinction. But the tide is turning, thanks to tougher protective legislations and the tireless work of passionate people. Perhaps none more so than this man. From an early age, Roy Dennis spent all his free time out in nature, helping birds and animals he found injured or abandoned. This calling would go on to inspire his life's work, taking him far and wide.
Well, this is the first ones we've ringed this year. They're very quiet little birds of prey.
On a mission to protect our wildlife.
Roy's job is to keep an eye open for egg collectors and people who might steal young peregrines. He won't be able to relax until the young ones have flown from the nest.
Now, Roy Dennis is arguably, and certainly from my point of view, the most important, proactive, practical conservationist that we've got in the UK. His speciality has been birds of prey, ospreys, sea eagles and red kites. But I've got to tell you that he goes far further than that, because in the field of conservation, Roy Dennis is an absolute legend. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? A passionate advocate for bringing species back from the brink of extinction, Roy single-handedly offers us hope for a wilder future. OK, why birds?
Birds definitely burn things into your mind. You know, the first time I saw a blue throat, boom.
Yeah.
Marsh harrier. Wow, I've never seen one of those before.
Those moments count, don't they?
They really do. You know, those early days. And I can still remember seeing my very first common gull.
Yeah.
We didn't have books in those days, but my scoutmaster had set the handbook, and so I'd borrow it. And by the next evening, I'd know everything about common gulls.
Yeah. They sort of tattoo a moment into your mind, don't they? But when Roy was a young man, many raptor species were exceptionally rare. I want to take you back to April the 8th, 1960. It was a Friday, and at 2:32 in the afternoon, something momentous happened.
My very first osprey.
What a moment.
Terrific excitement for a 19-year-old.
Back then, there was just one pair in the UK. But thanks to 65 years of Roy's unrelenting dedication, numbers are now up to 300 breeding pairs. And his excitement at seeing them today is just as great as it was all those years ago.
The first ospreys that turn up this year, I look through my scope and I see that staring yellow eye looking down the other end. And it just gives me that thrill again, even though I know there are so many nowadays.
It was ospreys that ignited Roy's passion for saving threatened species, and his sights soon turned to another raptor in need. Just 50 years ago, there were fewer than 40 breeding pairs of red kites, isolated in Wales. When I was 14 years old, I travelled to Wales because I wanted to see the kites before they became extinct, and that was their manifest destiny. Now, right, thanks to you, and whenever I travel around the south of England, I have the joyous sight of looking up and those big, long, wobbling tails. Just beautiful. That was a triumph of conservation.
Those were exciting days, getting those kites. People say it'll be too expensive to bring them over. And I said, but my friend in the RAF says RAF Nimrods can pick them up for free.
So, not allowing a small thing like transport to stop him from flying birds in from Sweden, Roy took them up on their offer.
We're waiting for an RAF jet to arrive with a very special cargo on board. They're red kite chicks.
And we've got 20 birds.
Hello.
This is quite a big one.
Wow.
This one's about 4.5 weeks old.
I can't believe it. This is a chick.
Yeah.
Everything that was thrown up, you'd already worked out what to do.
Fantastic. And with that determination, red kites are no longer isolated to Wales. Nationally, their numbers have reached an incredible 4,400 pairs today, with Roy's vital help. You're someone who has a tremendous reputation for getting things done.
I love doing things. Too many people become too worried about something failing that they'll never do it.
Roy's ambitions knew no limits. In the 1960s, he hand-reared his first pair of white-tailed eagles on Fair Isle. We now have over 130 breeding pairs across Scotland and parts of southern England, including for the first time, just a few weeks ago, over my very own garden. I rushed out the front door, looked up, and high over my house was a white-tailed eagle.
Fantastic.
On my garden list. There aren't words to express it. I have to think. I cannot tell you. I mean, now they're on my garden list.
But that's what we were aiming for, that you could see them anywhere in the country.
At the heart of Roy's work is one overriding goal.
Rare birds shouldn't be rare birds, and they shouldn't only be in nature reserves. They should be over the general countryside.
Do you reckon that you could take me to that exact spot where, on Friday, April the 8th, at 2:32, 1960, you stood and saw the osprey?
Yeah,
It's still
absolutely.
Right, come on then, that's our mission. The spot where you first saw an osprey a year before I was born.
Was it?
Yeah.
What a fantastic man. Absolutely sensational conservationist. We're going to be catching up with Roy a bit later on the programme to see more and celebrate more of his successes.
There should be more Roy Dennises in the world.
Can you
shouldn't there?
imagine?
There
It would
really
be a
should.
much better place for wildlife, wouldn't it?
As you know on the Watches, we like to celebrate the underdog. And tonight we're going to shine a light on the courtship and mating of spiders. How do they do it? It's the question on everyone's lips, and we're going to answer it. First of all, we're going to look at the courtship of a web spider. Now look at this. This is the male that goes into the female's web, and you see what he's doing with his back legs. He's sort of playing that piece of string like a harp, romantically plucking it to try and attract that female. So that's how a web spider does it. Other spiders have a different technique. Look at this one. This is totally different way of trying to attract a female. This is a wolf spider, and just look at what it's doing. It's trying to woo that female with some groovy moves. Basically, it uses its enlarged palps, it waves them around, puts one higher than the other in a sort of little sequence there, and then it vibrates its body. Is it impressing the female? Well, it's impressing the judges here. I think it gets 10 out of 10, a strictly 10.
On my hand, I have a facsimile, a model of that wolf spider, and my fingers represent its pedipalps here, and I'm flexing them up and down, attracting a female here. So this is part of the courtship display. This isn't mating, this is courting the female, making sure that she's in the mood to mate. It can be a risky business, of course, for spiders. So let's imagine he's got to the point the female is going to be receptive. How does he transfer his reproductive material? Well, he produces what we call a sperm web. He spins this using his spinnerets and another organ on the underside of his body, and then he climbs on top of it and deposits his sperm into that web. Now, that's not going to be much use if it's just left lying around. So what he does then is use those highly modified pedipalps to actually suck up the sperm here, and I can demonstrate that if I can get hold of my little things here, like that. There's the sperm being sucked up into the pedipalps like this, and they have hollow tubes inside like that, and then he needs to get it to the female. So he approaches the female very carefully, and he uses these pedipalps to pass it over. He's got to pass it to her epigynum, underneath her body. But look at the pedipalp here. It's got a very characteristic shape on it. And Michaela, if you take that over and demonstrate on the females here why it's got that very particular form at its tip.
So this is the underside of the female, and then that is the epigynum there, and then his pedipalp has to fit into one of them. Isn't that right, Chris?
That's exactly right.
Will it fit into that one? No. Will it fit into that one? No. So he's not going to mate with those two. Wrong spiders. Which one's he going to mate with? That one, because it fits perfectly.
So this is a way of ensuring that this particular male of a given species can only effectively mate with a female of the same species. His pedipalp needs to slot neatly into that epigynum to transfer the sperm. He then squirts it into her body, and she stores it in something called the spermatheca. Now, when she's finally ready to produce eggs, they pass out of her ovaries through the spermatheca where they are fertilised, and then she produces those eggs.
Well, and if we look at a picture, you can really see it, because that bulbous thing on the ends of her is the silk sac where the eggs are, and she carries that around for a few weeks, and then they all come out of there as little spiderlings. They climb on her back, piggyback her for a couple of days before they come off, and then they harden up and change colour. But look at that, they absolutely smother her. So that is how spiders do their courtship and mating, at least some of the spiders.
And
incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible. It's not that unusual in the animal kingdom. We always think of sperms as being directly transferred, but there are plenty of other animals that use packages like this. Octopus, for instance, will produce a sperm package, which the males will inject into the legs of the female, and she'll store it there until she's ready to reproduce. And there's an animal that's living in most of our garden ponds that does something similar. Our newts, they produce something called a spermatophore, and again they pass it to the female so that she can use it when she's ready.
And I'm really impressed that our little
I know.
spider pot works.
I'm afraid I had a bit of a leakage at the back there, but we won't talk about that.
That is
I'll tell you what we'll do.
fabulous.
We'll move swiftly on, because Yolo has been out and about looking for one of our favourite birds. I'm talking about the puffin.
When you think of large seabird colonies, you think of Scotland, the Farne Islands, Scomer Island in Wales. But there are small scattered colonies here along the Dorset cliffs. And if you're very lucky, you may well encounter an iconic species. The Atlantic puffin. With its striking, colourful beak, this beautiful seabird is easily recognisable. Puffins arrive along Dorset's coastline each spring. However, over the last 30 years, sightings have become more and more scarce. So I've come to meet local birdwatcher Richard Caldo, binoculars at the ready.
I've got one.
Where are you?
Just beyond the line of foam there.
Yeah.
Beyond the end of it.
Oh, yes, I've got you. Oh, wow. Sun's on it as well, isn't it? You can see the beak clearly. Lovely birds, really nice birds. I always think of puffins as nesting on grassy banks in burrows, but I assume they don't do that here.
No. The only place they nest is on the very narrow, eroded strata in the cliff face, about halfway down, and the puffins all nest just in that ledge.
Puffin numbers here have plummeted, from around 40 pairs in the 1950s to just 3 pairs now. Richard has a couple of possible explanations. A lack of food supply or predation.
Last year, I spent a lot of time recording the rate at which these birds brought their fish in, and that turned out to be perfectly fine. About 5 feeds per chick per day. But the problem was it only lasted for about 3 weeks. Puffin chicks normally take 6 weeks to fledge, so it stopped abruptly, 3 weeks too soon. So that made me think this is probably a predation issue.
So what's being done to find out what's going on?
This year, we've installed 2 cameras looking along the ledge to see what kind of avian predation might be going on, crows, gulls, jackdaws. And we've got one of the cameras pointing directly back into the ledge in case there are any rats and mice running around down there. And we've got a team of volunteers now doing what I did last year, which is quantify, are they bringing the fish in at a good rate, and are they doing it for long enough?
And of course, it's only when you've got all of that data in that you can take positive action. If we were able to come back here in 40 years' time, what would you like to see here?
It would be nice to see the puffin numbers back to where they were in the 1960s. That'd be quite a turnaround. It's entirely possible. If we can get their breeding success back up to what it should be, then they could be back up to 30, 40 pairs in that length of time, and that would be quite something. This little colony here is incredibly special and it's incredibly isolated. What I don't want to happen is in 20 years' time, when they do another national seabird census, that the little dot in Dorset disappears. That would be so sad. So we ought to put a bit of effort in to try and stop that happening if we can.
Great work by Richard there, and all of the volunteers that he's mustering. And we've got to say that UK conservation simply wouldn't work without its army of volunteers. The NGOs do a great job, but without all of those people very kindly giving up their time for projects like that, we wouldn't learn as much as we need to. There's a great volunteering initiative launching this weekend, the Big Help Out. It's not just about animal welfare or wildlife, it's about crisis and social care, it's about arts and culture. So if you think you'd like to get involved as a volunteer in any of these schemes, then please go to our website to find out more details.
Let's have a look at our live cameras. I tell you what, let's go to the sand martins. There we are, look. hunkered down for the night. 4 large chicks, of course. It's an artificial sandbank built by the RSPB. There we are. Birds still coming and going even this late on, but we had quite a bit of drama yesterday morning, very early morning. There's the bank. San Martin's coming and going. All of a sudden it goes all quiet. The sparrowhawk is back. The young male sparrowhawk is back. He has been a real thorn in their side. And look, the San Martins all come inside, the owls come in, they're quiet. The sparrowhawk didn't move for 45 minutes. He just stood there looking for an opportunity to grasp one of those San Martins. Found that nothing was going to come out while he was there, so off he went. And almost immediately afterwards, just 5 minutes afterwards, our San Martins were out and flying around once more. They must have had some kind of alarm, so they all went in quiet, and there must have been some call to let them know sparrowhawk's gone.
I really like that nest. I think if I was one of our birds, I'd like to be in that nest. You know, it's purpose-built, it's practical, it looks cosy.
If I was one of our birds, I'd like to be that sparrowhawk.
Yeah, actually, good point. It's been a good week, hasn't it, for our nests? We've had a couple of fledglings, we've had the robins and the Dartford warblers, lots of positive news. But we have got a predation as well, and I know they're not always easy to watch, but this is really interesting. This is with the nest we didn't even get a chance to really introduce you to. It's a blackbird nest. 4 little chicks in there. This is curious for a start. There's a wood mouse that comes and starts to nibble the chicks. I think this is a very optimistic wood mouse because there's no way he's going to get those chicks. They're way too big for him to nibble at. Adults come back in, all is well in the little nest. They're being fed well. The male comes with a beak full of food for the hungry chicks. So they were feeding, they were growing, we thought all was good. They hunker down and then just watch what happens. Out of nowhere comes a foot, 2 feet, and one of them is gone. But what is that predator? It was so quick. Well, it comes back and you can see very clearly that it's a buzzard. But look at where that nest is. It's right in the bramble bush. This is not an easy nest to get to, and you can see it struggles to get out. It came back a few times. Within about 12 minutes, it had taken 3 of the chicks. 1 remained, but was already dead. And then look at this. This is curious again. A vole comes in and starts to make the most of that dead chick. Now, that's not its usual food. I mean, it might take a few insects, but that's a pretty big feed for that vole. But so the whole thing was unusual and it was curious. And the fact that, as I say, it was in the middle of that bramble bush. And to sort of put that in perspective, just where that bush is, we sent our expert researcher, Jack Badams, out to show you.
So I've come out following the cables to the scene of the crime. I'm going to see just how determined this buzzard was to get in this nest. So here we are. This is where the drama happened. So if we look beyond the camera, you can see the nest in there. Now that, to me, is one of the most protected blackbird nests I've ever seen. Look at all that. It's pretty extraordinary to think of the lengths that this buzzard has gone to get to that nest. There is 2-3 feet of solid bramble and some gorse mixed in there for good measure, and it's come straight down from the top, fought its way through all of that to get to those chicks multiple times. That's one very hungry buzzard.
Definitely a hungry buzzard. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. I mean, normally they're feeding on small mammals. That's what their specialist is. But, you know, if they aren't about, if there are low numbers of voles, for instance, we know they will switch to feeding on birds, and they're pretty good at it. They just have to work a lot harder. They still produce young, but they've got to work harder to do so. Interesting thing was that wood mouse, though. Yeah. I think if those chicks were smaller, it might have had a go there.
Well, we've seen that happen before, haven't we?
Yeah, but they were too big now, surely.
Yeah, I think so.
OK, let's move on to the second of our films, celebrating the life and work of the one and only Roy Dennis. I'd set him a challenge, take me back to that place you first saw an osprey. But before we set off, I wanted to remind him of our first meeting. All right, take a look at this, but you're going to have to cast your mind back to different haircuts. Long distant days. I can't tell you how excited I was. Cool it, kids, because this is really groovy. I've come to a mystery location in the Highlands of Scotland on a secret mission. You were a bit of a legend, obviously, so it's quite intimidating for me. This was when Roy was working with the RSPB on an early Golden Eagle reintroduction programme. Can you remember where it was?
Yes, I know that tree.
Is it still occupied?
Still occupied.
What about that? By then, Roy was already 30 years into his conservation mission, and now, although thankfully our haircuts have changed, Roy's dedication to saving our raptors most certainly has not. I haven't got any food for you, unless you want my nose.
Looking at that of you being so enthralled by that first eagle nest and the young, that's really important, because if there weren't people like you pushing the bounds, then people like me would find it difficult to get things accepted.
OK, shall we go for a little jaunt?
I think we should go to Lochgarten.
Part of the Abernethy Nature Reserve, Lochgarten is not only the place of Roy's first osprey sighting, but also a place where, aged 19, his career in field ornithology took off.
We'll go in what is nowadays the upgraded garden shed. In you go.
All right, OK.
Absolutely there. So that dead tree was a beautiful live 200-year-old Scotch pine, beautiful top, and the birds started to put sticks.
And where were you standing? Here where we are?
I'm standing here, on this spot.
What about that? We can't underestimate how precious these birds were. These were famous, you know, not just in the UK, but all over the world. Roy helped keep watch over the birds night and day, and they needed it. Egg collecting was still a big thing, wasn't it?
It was a big thing.
And he went to extraordinary lengths to help the ospreys return.
We had barbed wire from the army. We had anti-climb paint up the tree.
The tree has been chopped down in the past, it's been set on fire, the eggs have been stolen. Can you avoid this sort of thing?
Well, it's very difficult. We're having electronic warning devices, and we're very hopeful now that we can stop people getting up that tree without us knowing.
Back then, Roy's dream was not only to protect the osprey here, but to see them relocated in other parts of the UK. A dream that has now come true. I can tell you that today, one of those ospreys that you've released into Poole Harbour has come back.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
It arrived today.
Fantastic.
And they've been breeding now as we've watched.
But that started here. Then there was just one pair, and now there's more than 300 pairs. So we can do it. I've always said to people, we should never talk about if. We should always talk about when are we going to do this project. Wildlife is in dire straits. So everything that we can do, which is positive, we need to get on and get it done.
In a way, Roy, we've come full circle. We've come back to the spot where you saw that first bird. On the day that a bird that you've introduced to the south of England has returned, hopefully to breed this summer. A remarkable achievement. And I mean, I know that I can speak for generations and thousands of conservationists and ornithologists and birders, and just want to say thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure, a pleasure.
Don't ever underestimate what you've done for wildlife and also what you've done for people, because, honestly, phenomenal.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
We've had a good day.
Yeah, we've had a great day.
What a man. What
Fantastic, man.
Do you know what? I was up in Scotland just 2 months ago, met up with him. He is as energetic and as enthusiastic as he ever was. And he's got several projects planned in the near future. Not allowed to mention any of them though. And it's thanks to Roy and his team and the Birds of Poole Harbour and their teams that we can now go over live to a local osprey nest. Look at that. Who'd have thought that possible 20 years ago? There she is, brooding. She's got 4 chicks there. Yeah, she's got 4 chicks. We can see all 4. No, but let's give you a recap of what's happened this year so far. The male, 22 as he's known, right back on the 25th of March, allowing the fact that it's a leap year, same time as last year. The female arrived much earlier, the day afterwards. And the theory is that she came back to keep an eye on the male. He's a bit of a Casanova. Last year, look at that. Another female came. The male was, well, in flagrante with her. And look at the look. Look at the look of the resident female. What are you doing? What on earth is going on there?
Awkward.
But it all went well. It all went well because they laid 4 eggs this year, all 4 hatched, and they got 4 chicks. And that is a phenomenal success for ospreys. They're still young, of course. One is quite a lot younger than all the others, but she's a brilliant mother, and she cuts up the fish into small little particles, you see, delicately feeding each one in turn. They're doing really, really well.
It's so good, isn't it? So good that there are 4 chicks. Do you know, I was there with my binoculars on the platform watching the nest when one of them hatched. Really exciting stuff. Fantastic. It's a nest so full of hope though, isn't it? And it was just 2 years ago that we were celebrating the first ever osprey chick to be successfully reared since 1847. It flew off after the breeding season. It came back 2 years later, which is this year on the 16th of May. And here's a picture of it. It was named 5H1, and on the right is the dad 022. And as I say, that's the first wild-fledged osprey in 180 years. That's a real tribute, isn't it, to Roy Dennis? Absolutely fantastic. And we'll be keeping an eye on that osprey nest next week.
It is fantastic. Let's go up to Megan now. Megan, we hope you got live beaver for us.
Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I've got live beavers for you. Let's go straight to Steve's camera right now, where I believe there is a beaver hanging out behind a tree. Look at that. A little bit of movement there, you can see an eye and an ear, and we have seen it swimming around just a few minutes ago. Look at it nestled in there. Such agile swimmers, of course. They use that big, scaly, naked tail as a rudder to help them ease through the water. Oh, and that light, that reflection. Yeah, when you see an animal live like this, it just doesn't get better than that, does it? So exciting that these animals are back with a vengeance. I'm loving all the beaver action. And when you think of beavers, I suppose the most common thing that comes to mind is their dams. And you'd be right to think that, because their dams are an intricate weave of different types of vegetation that they use and make creatively to, of course, hold water within their ecosystem, water which they are so reliant upon. Now, in the summer, if the water level gets below 68 centimetres, this is what triggers the damming behaviour. They won't just dam for the sake of it, they'll only dam if they need to increase that water level, to make sure that their lodge and the entrance to their lodges are under the water level, creating better protection from predators, but also as well to basically expand their habitat, because they'll only go out to forage about 20 to 30 metres usually from where they are. So it expands their habitat, they're able to go out and explore a bit more. And there are different, oh, we've got more swimming. Oh my goodness. How spectacular is that? Eyes, of course, on the top of their head so that they can see whilst they're swimming like this. Ears too, although they don't particularly have good eyesight, but very sensitive noses. Oh, that's so exciting. Yes. We've delivered tonight, haven't we, if I do say so myself. Now, there are lots of different types of dams that you can see, and the traditional large dam is made up of lots of different sticks which they carry up and position downstream, but facing upstream in about a 30-degree angle on average, and then they use twigs and sticks and mud to really pressure that in. Sometimes they're straight, sometimes they can be a little bit wonky, like this one here, and these were photos taken at Argotty just a few weeks ago. You can see there it's a bit smaller, it's much muddier. Perhaps it's a dam being built or just to be used as a bit of a weir. But then they get even more wavy than this in a zigzag construction. Look at that. Now, why would a beaver do this when it would be much easier to create a straight one? Less energy, less resources, having to go out and get things to create a straight one. Well, they have a very specific reason for doing this. So I've got my beaver buds down here, and this is a straight beaver dam, or what represents it. Now, there's of course a lot of flow that comes up here, and per metre of beaver dam, it can withhold 1,340 litres of water, which is the equivalent to 7.5 bathtubs. But by creating a zigzag structure like this, they're able to increase the surface area of the dam. So if I untangle it and put it out this way, you can see that there's a lot more vegetation that's involved, but ultimately, actually, it creates a lot more strength, a lot more versatility, so that the dam is stronger and not going to break under increased flow. These really are incredibly sensitive and brilliant, intelligent ecosystem engineers, and they go about obviously gnawing on lots of bits of wood that they can find, bits of hardwood, bits of softwood, and they've got iron coated incisors, iron enamel, and they're able to gnaw down on this wood. It helps them because their teeth are continuously growing, so it makes sure they're nice and healthy. But by doing this, they're creating habitat, they're creating dead wood, they're opening up the canopy for vegetation that's underside it. So they really are kind of supporting these wetland ecosystems, and you can see the teeth marks here. Now, where I'm stood, just a little bit downstream from where the beaver currently is, you can see evidence of them. Have a look at what they've been doing. Now, this must have taken them quite a while. They have gnawed through the tree like this, and you can see the teeth marks going down here. And there's been lots of wood chip that's been collected from around the site. And if I turn it this way, you can see how thick it is. Just shows you how sharp and powerful their incisors are. They've got lots of muscle around their head to be able to do that. Oh, we've got one more beaver getting out the water. Let's have a look. Why not? Oh, look at that tail and that glorious bottom. Wandering up, having a sniff around. Oh, what's it got? It's got a carrot. Oh, stop it. Don't say we don't spoil you. Look at that. Look at how it's got hold of it. Having a munch. Oh, I can't contain myself. This is only about, I don't know, 30 metres away from me right now. Right, okay, that's enough of live beaver. I'm sorry to pull you away from it. I really, really am. Oh my goodness, I need to compose myself. And whilst I do that, let's head back to Arn, where Chris, Michaela and Yolo are waiting.
Yeah, well, it's all right, isn't it? Beaver eating a carrot is all right, but it's hardly live badgers, though, is it? Hardly live badgers.
That's
Come
what
on.
you needed, a carrot.
A carrot, that's it. Carrots and peanuts next time.
Sensational stuff. I tell you what, we're coming towards the end of our programme. Let's take a look at our live nest. We've got a couple of new ones to introduce you to, actually. Let's not hesitate. Let's go straight to our meadow pipit's nest. Now, we have seen meadow pipit on the watches before. We had one last year. It was feeding a cuckoo, though, not its own brood. And we've got 4 chicks in this nest. They are insectivorous birds, about 2.5 million pairs in the UK. Sounds a lot. Sadly, they've declined a lot from the 1970s. It's intensification of farmland, it's less insects they've been suffering from. But in the south now, they seem to have stabilised and they're holding their own, and these ones are doing a great job of feeding their young.
Yeah, let's launch another nest straight away. Let's go live to our stonechat nest. This one is out on the heath here at Arn, on the floor. Look at that. And there's the adult female, look, standing guard. There are 2 big chicks in that nest. They've been feeding them regularly. They're very, very good parents. This female again disappearing. We've had to dig the camera into the ground just to get it level with the nest. You see the chicks begging for food there. They'll be bringing in all sorts of invertebrates, the male coming in as well. And I'm pleased to say that actually stonechats are doing well. They get hit by bad winters because we had a succession of mild winters. Now the numbers are increasing and they're spreading from western and northern UK across to the east as well. And she beds down there. Beautiful nest, lovely nest.
It is, isn't it? I think we have a quick look at our barn owl as well, because there it is live. I'll tell you what, the adults are gorgeous. I mean, from your LBJs, 2 of them, that is a BBJ, a big brown job, sort of. Little brown job, big brown job.
I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going. Look at the heart-shaped face, though. Beautiful. And then look at the face of that chick. I mean, how does that rather alien-looking chick grow into such a beautiful bird? Look at the wiggle. Little wiggle on the bum there. As I say, they're really not the most attractive, are they? I mean, they're pink, they're not particularly pretty, but we adore them anyway.
Extraordinary, extraordinary. OK, let's take a minute and a bit now for some mindfulness and immerse ourselves in a verdant glade of bluebells.
Oh, I do like a bluebell wood. I do like a
I feel
bluebell
calm,
wood.
don't you?
Yes, I do. I do indeed. Let's show you this. This was sent in by Ben Porter. It's Bardsey Island and it's entry off the northwest coast of Wales. It's a bottling grey seal. Lets out a bit of air, starts to sink slowly. It's fast asleep. It's having a bit of a doze. Down to the bottom he goes, and they can sleep there for up to 45 remarkable minutes.
Listen, we haven't got very long left, but just enough time to take the mickey again out of you and your badgers. Everyone's seeing badgers except you. Look, all you need is to sit in your garden with your mobile phone like Ian Carter was, and look, there he's got badgers. But look, ooh, that badger doesn't like him very much, so a bit of a hissing, bit of a shake, and off he goes. Lovely stuff.
I think we've still got beavers live up in Scotland. Look at that.
Oh, chewing a carrot.
Look at that. Sensational stuff, as Megs has been saying this evening. The reintroduction of these animals is paying dividends for our landscape, offering resilience when it comes to flooding, massively increasing the biodiversity, many more species of fish, reptiles, amphibians, all of the aquatic life in there, then all the birds that come with it. Absolutely amazing.
I love that
to see
tail.
these
I
animals
love
back.
that tail.
What a great way to end the show, eh? The second week of our show, and we end on a live beaver. Wonderful stuff. Well, that's it for us. We'll be back on Monday. What have we got coming up? Oh, lots of treats for you. We've got frolicking family of foxes who call a London allotment their home. Look at that face.
And I'm going to be taking a closer look at sand martins.
And I'll be searching for the wild nestled in within the city centre of Glasgow.
We'll be back on Monday at 8 o'clock, but don't leave us yet. Hit the red button now or go over to iPlayer where Hannah Stitful will be doing Watch Out with Yolo. The goal, of course, is to find a nightjar. Do continue to look at our live nest. Remember, 7 in the morning until 10 at night. Those oyster catchers, they're on the brink. Worth keeping an eye on those. And do keep sending us your images and your videos and any questions that you've got. And remember, next week is National Fly Week, and we'll be celebrating the lives of these insects by delving deeply into their reproductive behaviour and looking at what they're feeding on, most notably squirrel poo. Bye! Find out how we can all nurture a deeper connection with nature through positive actions. The Open University invites you to take part in a citizen science project, Springtime Renewal, by sharing your experiences and exploring practical ways to help. To find out more and get involved, head to bbc.co.uk/Springwatch and then follow the links to the Open University.